All right, well, regardless of how one feels about the topic of human-generated climate change, I think it's safe to say that most folks in the quality profession appreciate a commitment to reducing muda, which of course is the Japanese phrase for waste. In his article, ISO 14001, ISO 50001 benefit the environment and the bottom line. QD contributor Bill Levinson right there mostly sidesteps the political controversies around the topic of climate change and instead focuses on an argument for efficiency.
Sure.
I'll give you a little background here first. ISO 14001 is the standard guiding the performance of environmental management systems, while ISO 50001 deals with energy management systems, and these are ISO standards. I mean,
Sure.
they have a very kind of regimented format in
Right.
terms of what you do and what you need to do, and they're pretty prescriptive in terms of how to do that. And like all of those standards, they really tell organizations what they have to do to adhere to those requirements if they wish to first obtain and then, of course, maintain registrations to those standards. And it's audited, of course, as we know.
Yeah.
I mean, auditors are going to come in and look at that and see whether or not you really are in compliance with what those standards say. And again, environmental management and energy management both can be looked at as key parts of a climate change mitigation strategy. I think many of us believe that man-made climate change is a real thing, and that it's important to address it in order to prevent long-term and perhaps irreversible damage to the planet's ability to support life well into the future. I've read things, you've probably read the same statistics, 97% was a number that I've heard thrown around of all published papers from peer-reviewed papers in climatology
Right.
state that this is happening.
Right.
So that's pretty compelling for me,
Yeah,
but
okay.
but
Not everybody though.
like I say, it's important to realize that not everybody believes what I just said. And Levinson supports the likelihood of climate change in his piece, albeit with some mites and mays
Right.
thrown in there. He threw a few of those in there, okay.
He waffles a little bit on it.
Sure, just
Yeah.
to a little bit, just
Yeah.
to acknowledge this degree of doubt. And to demonstrate that there is far from uniformity of opinion on this topic, especially amongst our readers, as you well know, Dirk. I want to read to you two reader comments from the piece that kind of called out the differences in what people believe on this. The first was headline, "No Evidence." I'm not going to say who these people were, Dirk,
Okay, yeah.
but I'm just going to say read their comments. The first one says, "No evidence," and it goes like this: "There is no evidence whatsoever that man's CO2 has caused any of the warming since the Little Ice Age. Anyone who claims otherwise should present evidence. I have spoken to Dr. Trenberth, IPCC, and that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. He's a well-known climatologist, and he claimed that evidence was sea levels. The evidence was sea levels. He ran away when I pointed out that sea levels have been rising at a decreasing rate for the past 20,000 years. When Jericho was being built, the Earth was warming at 16 times faster the rate than it is today. Global warming is just another scam." Just this person's opinion.
Right.
I'm not saying you agree with that.
Right.
That's one perspective from a reader who wrote in about this piece. The second was from another reader, had the headline, "Why so equivocal on climate change?" And that one reads, is a little shorter, that one reads, "It is certainly occurring and it's certainly attributable to man-made causes. You undercut your credibility by downplaying the risks." In other words, like I say, Levinson did waffle a little
Right.
bit on
And
that.
yeah, he was addressing
He
that.
addressed
right.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually, in past writings, he has waffled even more,
Right.
and even somewhat denied it, I think. And
Yeah.
Bill would say that he's not a climate change adapter too much.
Right.
But his point really isn't about the politics, and I'm kind of getting off on a straw man argument here, because really the argument is the efficacy of ISO 14001 and ISO 50001 as tools to mitigate waste. Really is what it's all about. I mean, if you think about it, why not reduce waste? Why not? I mean,
Right,
these
right.
standards help you do that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they help you
Yeah.
be more efficient in your processes, right? I mean, he always uses the money, and Henry Ford uses the example of dollars going up the smokestack. I mean, when you have waste that's emitting from your smokestacks in those days,
Right.
in a factory, that's stuff you didn't properly utilize.
Right.
It was burned in some way and it was lost.
Right.
So there was waste in that. There's dollars going up the smokestack. So why not correct that if you can? I mean, there's benefits to doing that, right?
Right.
To reducing
Sure.
waste. And that's really the argument that he makes for supporting things like ISO 14001 and ISO 50001. Yes, it's good for the environment. It's also good for your bottom line.
Right.
That's really what you need to consider regardless of where you're at in the debate. One other thing I wanted to put in here on this. Do you know who Blaise Pascal is?
Sure.
You've heard of Blaise Pascal. Okay. 17th century French philosopher and mathematician, and he was a really, really great genius of the late Renaissance. Do you know Pascal's wager? Have you heard that?
No.
Okay. Pascal's got a famous wager he made in the 17th century, and it goes like this. I'm not quoting directly, but I'm kind of shortening it for you.
Because you would have to do it in French.
Yes, I'd have to. That would be one thing. I'm not going to do that. Pascal's wager goes like this: a rational person should live as though God exists.
Okay.
All right. He's talking about whether or not you believe in God or not believe in God.
Okay.
So he says a rational person should live as though God exists and live a moral life, because if God does not exist, such a person is only going to have a minimal loss. I mean, you have a loss of hedonistic luxury, whatever, right? However, if God does exist, that person living in the right way stands to receive infinite reward in the form of heaven, right? And avoid infinite loss, which is an eternity in hell.
Right.
So you think about that from the perspective of climate change. I thought about this from Pascal's wager. I mean, why not say that climate change is happening? Man-made climate change is happening. Take steps to address it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, you drive less, you bike more, you walk more, good for you, right? I mean, you're not losing much, you're not risking much, but you are risking a heck of a lot if you're a denier.
Right.
If you're a denier, you say it's not happening, I'm going to drive as much as I want, we're not going to worry about carbon emission, we're not going to worry about any of that stuff, we're not going to worry about waste in this instance.
Right.
But you're risking a lot. We're all risking a lot from that attitude. So why not, using Pascal's wager as a framework, say it's happening, it's existing, it's happening.
Right.
Let's take steps to mitigate it, because if it's not happening, the steps we're taking to mitigate it are good steps anyway. They're not really doing much harm. Maybe they're doing harm to the oil companies, but they're not doing a lot of harm to the rest of us, so why not mitigate it?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think it's a fair comment?
And by the I think this is a I think this is a problem with those who are trying to promote less CO2, less greenhouse gases, so on and so forth, and trying to lay it all at, we got to do this because of climate change. I said, just don't get off that horse. The easiest, biggest, get off that horse, promote it like we used to do way back in the 60s when we were trying to get rid of trash and clean air, and it was all about, it's like, you don't want to wreck your environment, you don't want to, you don't want to pee in the water you drink, I mean, it was kind of like very personal. It's kind of like, do you want to live like this? Do you want to drink tainted water? Do you want to drink, breathe fouled air? Do you want trash blowing around? Well, no, nobody wants that. Do you want to help your bottom line, not have waste going out the stack? I think it should be approached that way, because you still get the same result. If your goal is drive down greenhouse gas emissions because it reduces climate change, what matter does it make how you get people to do it? Whether you get them on board with climate change or you get them on board with, I don't want to be breathing or drinking or eating this stuff, right?
I mean, the counter to that is, from people who don't believe climate change is happening, is it's destructive to our economy. It's destructive to an energy-based economy. We need to drill. We need the revenues from that. But getting away from that model and getting onto a model where energy is derived in other ways could be a really profitable model too. But entrenched interests who are making money, I'm not trying to be socialist right now, but entrenched interests
socialist
who are right now making a lot of money from an energy-based, a current energy-based, oil-based economy are going to fight that. People that don't want autonomous or electric or hybrid vehicles are going to say, well, we got to fight that. They're going to deny it. They're going to try to confuse the science to a certain extent. I think it's helpful to keep those things in mind. Why do people have a dog in this fight? What is that dog? What does that represent? And it's not that that's not a legitimate argument. But there's other arguments to me that are more compelling, that make more sense, and Pascal's wager is kind of one of them. So, that's my thought on that.